My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. Well, it's been quite a day. So many talking points. India getting over the line. They'll certainly want to adopt the Australian capital and take it everywhere. Unfortunately, this is the last match that they'll be playing in Canberra. They won the ODI. They've won the T20 International. Now it's off to Sydney. Will it be business as usual for Australia? But for now, let's focus on this game. 161 for 7. In isolation, it maybe we thought 10, 15 runs short. But like the ODI, even a subpar total with good bowling and fielding and 12 players to the rescue meant that it could be a very different story. The reason I say 12 players is, of course, because the talking point of the day will be the concussion substitute. Towards the end of India's batting innings, Ravindra Jadeja, he got hit on the helmet. Ball ballooned up to Moses Henriques. He didn't take the catch, but nobody came onto the field to try and fix that hit on the head. So it didn't look hard enough. He hit some beautiful blows after that. The question was it a delayed concussion as India went into the dressing room because he also had an apparent hamstring injury? Net, Justin Langer came out to have a chat with David Boone. Nothing came of it. And Yuzvendra Chahal not only came in as a concussion sub, but he certainly made the Australians have a headache or two with his 3 wickets. And he certainly is a contender for man of the match. What do our panel think about it? I've discussed it briefly with Michael Vaughan on Cricbuzz Combox, but I want Zaheer Khan's opinion on the entire issue. Zaheer, it is going to be the talking point. Your view on the matter?
Well, you can say that the hit was a timely hit on the head. You know, that certainly gave that smartness in thinking to come in play. India was in well within the rights of using that concussion rule to their advantage. You can call it smart, you can call it cheeky, and you will never know, because the concussion is this something, it's about how the player is feeling and how the medical staff is examining that. End of the day, it's going to be what Ravindra Jadeja had to say, whether he's feeling anything on those lines or not. And I'm sure because of that, everything was well within the boundaries of the rules which are set. You can say, this has opened up that gray area going forward when it comes to concussion rule. That is definitely debatable. But today, I think, apart from being upset and angry, Langer cannot do much about how things panned out.
Yeah, Michael, call it a can of worms or call it Pandora's box. It has opened up a whole point of discussion. As you said, it was interpretation, cheeky even, as Zaheer might suggest, but it was well within the rules. We'll have to all agree on that.
Yeah, it's within the rules, and India have used the system nicely. I mean, Justin Langer will be very disappointed because no Jadeja's bowling, obviously no Chahal, greater chance of winning the game. Chahal was magnificent with his 3 wickets, as was Natarajan. I thought those two in particular. Washington Sundar went at 4 and over. If Justin Langer's honest, I think, you put that aside. Obviously, there'll be an excuse if he wants to use it as an excuse that, and it's quite a big excuse in terms of the concussion rule. But I think he needs to look deeper into his batting and the way that they're playing. It's been quite a common trend in T20 cricket that when they're chasing this kind of scenario on a wicket that offers something for the slower bowlers, the seamers with a bit of skill, this Australian batting lineup has come a little bit unstuck. There's not a great deal of experience in that middle of the innings. So that's really where I think Justin Langer should really focus his attention on, trying to make sure that he gets more of an attention to what are those batters doing in that middle period, because it's quite obvious when I watch them and study Australian cricket that they really struggle on these kind of wickets against this type of bowling. They seem to have batters that can strike a ball, but they don't seem to have enough batters that can skillfully manoeuvre the ball into the gaps, which just ticks over the scoreboard. It's either all or nothing, which is a concern for Australia.
Yeah, fair enough. All I can say is it's going to spawn plenty of memes on the internet. I've been scouring the net for some. We haven't had any so far, but let's just round off this discussion by actually looking at the laws as we interpret them. They can be very wordy at times, so we'll put them up, not necessarily read into every single word, but for all of you out there, worth having a look at what we're talking about. The operative part of the concussion sub rule 1.2.7. The head or neck injury must have been sustained during playing area, box ticked, A concussion or suspected concussion must have been formally diagnosed by the team medical representative, obviously box ticked. The real question is, what we are putting forth is, does it have to have happened immediately, or as Rahi said, since it happened in the 20th over, concussion can take place in a delayed form, and the ICC match referee ordinarily appoint a concussion replacement if the replacement is a like-for-like player whose inclusion will not excessively advantage his team for the remainder of the match. So it was bowler for bowler in that sense. Jadeja might be an all-rounder, but bowler for bowler is what we're talking about. We remember an earlier situation where Mehdi Hassan Miraj had come on as a concussion sub for a batsman in the day-night test match in Kolkata. He was not allowed to bowl on that occasion. So in terms of Yuzvendra Chahal's role, no argument on that respect whatsoever. But purely looking at the rules, I think it was fair and square. If anything, somebody will need to look at those grey areas and maybe paint them either black or white, Michael.
Well, the key word here is actually suspected concussion. So today's scenario, it fits in perfectly with that rule, saying that they suspected a concussion. It need not be tomorrow or right now as we speak. Jadeja might be feeling fine, and no one can do anything about it. So I think because of the clarity in terms of stating that rule, I don't think for anyone it's going to be easy to question the decision which was made today.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's the point, Michael.
Yeah, I think, Gautam, the bigger area is probably the independent doctor that should be there. The Indian doctor is just going to work on behalf of the Indian team. The Australian doctor would have done exactly the same, working on behalf of the Australian team. What's best for Australia? What's best for India? The doctors are going to do they're in that team. They are part of the Indian team or part of the Australian team. It really does need the ICC to. And I know it's more of an expense, but we do need independent doctors on site because, we all know that concussion is becoming more prominent across all sports. So it's very important that if we're going to have concussion replacements, we need an independent doctor on site.
But just to finish off this point, I mean, we look at the sport of football when there's been so much talk about players who dive, trying to extricate a penalty from a referee. So it's just about how you feel. If you've just been sort of nudged, are you going to feel that, oh my God, it's like I've gone down and I'm down for the count? So even if you were to have an independent assessor, there's nothing really to stop the player from maybe not feeling as well as he might feel, right?
Absolutely, and that's what I'm trying to get to. I mean, how one can just figure out exactly what is happening within someone's body. You have to go by what the player is talking about at that stage. So for anyone to judge exactly how the seriousness of the injury is, you have to give it time. And I think the rule for any injury in any sport, I think is how the next game is affected. So I think for Jadeja to play the next game, it's a similar kind of scenario. He may not get the substitute. What we've seen today, but in today's scenario, I guess it was well within the rules. It was in fact used in the best possible scenario. And like I said, the timing of the hit on the head couldn't have been better for India. Whether how serious the matter is with regard to Jadeja's health at the moment. They can definitely look into it, but the timing, as far as Indian team is concerned, that timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah, I mean, two ways he'll have to miss games because of obviously his leg, and if he's had a delayed concussion, which they've said that he has, he'll have to miss the remainder of the series. You would think. I go back to Steve Smith in the Ashes in England a couple of years ago. Got that brutal blow from Jofra Archie, had to miss the next Test match. So I would think that whatever happens, we won't be seeing Ravi Jadeja in the next couple of T20s. One of the biggest things that we should really mention is the fact that the doctors and the physios didn't go out to see him. That is remarkable. They almost and rightfully so anal in this area of the game of anyone that gets hit on the head. Even Virat's drop catch that clocked him on the head. Generally you see a doctor come out just to check. We're in that era of the game, rightfully so, that we want to check and be absolutely sure that the player's okay. So why the doctor and the physio didn't go out to just check on Jadeja, I'll never know.
Yeah, because it was a fairly flush hit on the helmet to the extent that the ball ballooned over the head of Moses Henriques and he wasn't able to take that catch. And we were all focusing on the catch and could he probably take it, because it was an edge of the bat onto helmet towards Enrique's. So that's the way.
And just moving away from a little bit from the concussion part of things. And Michael has brought a good point about the physio. And if you look at the last couple of months in Indian cricket, the whole drama has been surrounding the medical aspect of things. Be it Hardik suddenly coming on to bowl, or Rohit Sharma's whole debacle, what has happened. It was all medical related. So I think, there are things to be certainly looked into with regard to that department in getting the processes right, because someone needed to be there. That's the protocol. As far as my understanding of the rule goes, as soon as someone is hit on the head, it's physio's job to run on the field and make sure that the player is okay.
Isn't it wonderful, Michael? In the space of one T20 international, we've had a discussion on whether an analyst plays a bigger role than the coach or the captain, and whether the physio plays a bigger role than the rest of the team.
It's an incredible era of the game. So, and also the spotlight that the game's under because of social media and all these different social channels. We can all have our own comments and have our say. So it kind of gets transcended into being a lot bigger than maybe it would have been 10 or 15 years ago. But when you're looking at concussion and people getting hit on the head, it has to be a complete protocol. And it is that a physio and a doctor goes out there, checks the batsman, and also the helmet. The helmet took quite a blow. I was under the understanding as soon as the helmet in this era got a crack on it, you had to replace the helmet as well. So just a few little things that we have to just look at today and think, it wasn't quite done professionally.
Yeah, fair enough. But the one interesting factor we haven't spoken about at all is a selection issue. Kohli mentioned at the end, we had no plans for Yuzi, obviously, to get into the game. Concussion can be a strange old thing. It worked in our favor. But Yuzvendra Chahal is going to stand up and say, guys, this is for not taking me in the team. Zaheer?
Well, I think every opportunity like this, a bowler who suddenly dropped, usually is thinking about, how he's going to make his comeback, right? And in Chahal's case, it has happened very quickly, very suddenly. And I'm glad that he was prepared for it. The conditions also today was certainly in favor of spin bowling, and that is something which really worked in Chahal's favor.
Yeah, he has been India's choice usually in T20 internationals. We saw what he did in the IPL itself. So in a sense, it's a relief, but fairly certain that he's going to get a look in the second T20I, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's about taking your chance, isn't it? It's it's down to you as an individual. Do you sit on the bench and sulk? Do you kind of go complaining to some of your teammates that you're not playing, or do you just kind of have a mindset and an attitude? Look, when I get my chance, and today he got his chance in the game. I mean, it doesn't happen that often that you suddenly are allowed to go and bowl in a game that you're not selected for. It's a strange era of the game. He'll be playing on Sunday, that's for sure. He bowled beautifully. He's a high-class T20 bowler. He goes back to the SCG where the Australians got the better of him in the 50-over game. It's now his time to play a couple of T20s to have his final say with the white ball. India are off to a good start, and they now go back to the ground where they got hammered in the 50 overs. But you feel that they've just gathered a little bit of momentum in Canberra. Can they take it on the bus down to Sydney?
Yeah, and it is just for the record. We were joking about it earlier. Would it be a shared man of the match between Ravindra Jadeja and his concussion buddy? But it wasn't. It was the concussion sub all on his own. The first time ever, folks, a concussion sub is man of the match. So well done, Yuzvendra Chahal. But Zaheer, let's come to the left arm quick and talk about the left arm quick. Natarajan, in all this concussion discussion, he's been forgotten. With no hits on the head, he's been outstanding yet again.
He was superb. I think that Maxwell's wicket was the key in the game. If you look at it, Virat used him very differently today. We did speak about the new ball dilemma, who's going to start with the new ball, and because of that, Natarajan had to actually come in the game much later. But in spite of that, he was good enough to make that impact, and with the old ball, got the ball just nipping back enough to get Maxwell out with a peach of a delivery was something, a game changer at that point. And that's something which we've been talking about as well. The middle order weakness of Australians, they relied too much on Maxwell for that power. I think that power in the middle order is missing for Australia. And from with that regard, getting that wicket at a crucial time certainly helped India squeeze that middle phase of the game.
Yeah, Michael Vaughan made that point earlier about Justin Langer. Yes, he certainly had a chat with David Boone, but he'll have to focus on that middle order and their own processes as opposed to what happens in the opposition. But also a word, I know we've had a word or two about him. Sometimes when you're not in the wickets column, you tend to get ignored. But Washington Sundar, in a scenario like this, just the 16 runs, another great contribution in squeezing Australia.
Yeah, he's high class. India have to stick with him. I just think he's got he's just got that mind and that awareness of what to do at the right times. He bowls in the tough overs. He bowls in the power play. He's bowling generally to the best players. It's very rarely, and particularly go back to the eye play, it's very rarely that an opposing team gets him. Smashes him to all parts. He just seems to have that knack of restricting players, not being hit for the boundary, building up a few dots. Not necessarily always getting a huge amount in the wickets column, but a great team player, good with the bat as well, decent in the field. If you actually look at all the Indian bowlers, it's the experience that travels. Shami's gone to all parts in comparison to the other four. And I think sometimes in T20 cricket, we talk experience and, we need players that have played a bit. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's better not to have experience. You just need to have the know-how of how to play the game. And these young Indian bowlers today were magnificent because they just took what they've learned in the IPL, all the skill levels that they've produced in the IPL, being around all the different styles of international players in those dressing rooms. And we've said it for many, many years, the Indian young players now to have that experience of being in the dressing rooms with the best in the world, and not just the best players, but the best coaches. They really do have to make it their advantage, and it should put them in a great position of being one of the top two favourites to win that T20 World Cup on home soil in a year's time.
Yeah, interesting. He's that kind of character, Zaheer, who since he doesn't necessarily pick up bucketful of wickets, you tend to ignore him when you're talking about probables, hopefuls, big stars, because he quietly goes about his work, even the runs he scores.
I think this year he's looked more clearer with his thinking of the game. I think with the new ball, certainly he's more comfortable when he's bowling with that new ball in the power play. That's where he's made maximum impact. And in terms of his role clarity, you've seen it with RCB also this year. He was utilized in that fashion and was growing in confidence as he was playing more and more games. His batting is also going to be useful. I think going forward, when you look at the modern day cricket, you need bowlers to also contribute with the bat. And Washington Sundar is someone who has been batting in the top order at list A and first class. So that is something which he should carry it forward, get that confidence at the international level, because he's also going to be useful with the bat. He's got a good technique, has the ability to hit big shots as well. So that is something which Indian team should focus on, because his role, if you're utilizing him in this fashion, is always going to be consistent with keeping that run flow down.
Yeah, also something we mentioned at the top of the show, and I should get a blow on the head for not mentioning it earlier right now, is that India have actually hit 8 in a row. It's the possibility we mentioned at the very start, 7 in a row. Could it become 8? And that is their most successful run of 8 victories in a row in T20 internationals. And it's not a bad time to come when you're building up to that T20 World Cup at home. And of course, you're getting some of these runs overseas in difficult conditions against difficult opposition. India will be delighted with this. But maybe if you had to look at a point, once all the dust has settled and once all those boxes have shut, is the fielding. We had a few instances today, not just the catches that were dropped, but that one went through the legs of Sanju Samson, conceded the 5 extra runs, and we can just put those down in terms of what they were. The simplest of them, ironically, Zaheer, was skipper himself. 6.3, as you see, there's consecutive deliveries. Finch dropped, and then next ball, Darcy shot put down. Wasn't costly at the end of the game, but certainly when it comes from someone like Virat Kohli, he can only smile about it, but sometimes it can hurt.
Exactly. So when you look at the whole game, you will see that Indian team has not really played to the potential which they should have played this game to win the match, and that's why you will be more concerned about Australian side in spite of having this poor fielding effort, in spite of dropping catches, some misfields, overthrows going for boundary, they're still able to win this game so comfortably. And that really raises concern for Australia going forward in this series. Indian team will be very happy with the whole effort, because they've been down in the series. I mean, I'm counting the ODI series as well. You needed things to turn around. It has been hard for them. They've still not been playing the best cricket which we've known them to play, but they have got the momentum and the win under their belt, which is going to be a concerning factor going forward in the series for Australia.
I guess it's one of the perks of being skipper. You just have to smile and nobody says anything about it. Michael, have you ever had a situation where you've, as captain, dropped a catch and then looked around, wondered, is there anyone who's going to give you a earful? No, I'm captain. No one can say a thing.
Gautam, it happened in every game with me. It was a regular occurrence. It became a bit of a laughing stock in the dressing room about my catching. But Virat, for such a good mover, he does drop a lot of balls. I wasn't a great mover. Virat is, yet he still dropped a lot of balls. It's his mind. His mind's all, he's so active and he's so busy. He's always thinking and probably thinking about bowling changes, fielding settings. And before you know it, you've not quite concentrated on that ball going into the hands. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't quite concentrate all the way for that ball to go into the hands, it slips through. It actually just clocked him on the side of the head, which was quite amusing. I can only imagine Justin Langer, who just had to see Chahal replace Jadeja as a concussion player, and the skipper who's actually kind of taken that leap of doing that, gets one and knocks him on the head. It was almost like just rubbing a little bit of salt into Justin's wounds. But delight for India. Actually, two games ago, I was on here, and I think we all were saying it could be a long tour. They had to get a win. They got the win on Friday, and now they've got this one. It's a really big kind of boost for the morale of the team. Winning is what keeps you alive on tour. It keeps the buzz and the energy around the group. So these two wins in Canberra have really given the Indian side a massive boost going down to Sydney for the last two, and then obviously the Test series starting in Adelaide.
But yeah, we'll forgive all those drop catches, Michael, because of all your contributions with the bat as captain. That's what we remember Michael Vaughan as. And we'll just sneak in a little My 11 Circle badge of honor as our token of gratitude to you.
Michael is on fire.
There you go.
But I want something for it. Can you send? I tell you what, just send me a vaccine. I think there's some vaccine arriving.
If we only could do that. But it was actually significant, Zaheer, that Michael should have won that, because going by his prediction, saying that Australia will come hard, they were on course to win. Remember, we showed you those two games when one was against England with 8 wickets, 9 wickets in hand. They had run a ball to get. This was not quite run a ball, but at the power play stage, they were very much ahead of the game, Zaheer.
They ticked that box so nicely and put Indian bowling under pressure. And that's why I'm saying, there is definitely concern over this Australian batting lineup for sure, because it has not happened just once. So they've been utilizing that power at the top, but I feel they're banking too much on Maxwell at the back end of the innings to provide that power. And dot balls again. We did mention that Indian team soaked in quite a lot of dot balls, but Australians actually have gone beyond that. So that is definitely a concern. You can analyze the game when you're batting second. You are better aware about the conditions, better aware about the options which you are going to take on this particular track, and the strategies. So that is something which definitely is a concern for Australia going forward.
Now, one very interesting interpretation is, and this is when we look at our My 11 Circle Ultimate Team of the day, you've got a man of the match who's bowled beautifully. He's taken 3 wickets, but technically speaking, you're not going to find him in there, but though his name does feature here, because in retrospect, yes, he is your My 11 Circle Ultimate Team of the day. But at the start of the game, you couldn't have selected Yuzvendra Chahal because he was not part of the 22. So technically speaking, you cannot pick up points from Yuzvendra Chahal. But nonetheless, if you just have to look at a utopian team, he does feature in there as someone who's picked up the points.
That means that there is a case has to be put up with My 11 to bend the rule as well here. They should also think of a concussion rule in be it the real cricket or the fantasy league. You have to be adaptable to these kind of situations and scenarios for all the participants to be able to use the player if someone is injured halfway through and concussion rule is come into place.
Fair enough. I think it should be there. I think for me, the most easy interpretation is you can't have people being made to choose in between, because you don't know. Once you've chosen your team, you could be doing your own thing. It's simply a replacement. Those points get credited in the Jadeja column. And if you pick Jadeja, then you get Chahal. I think that's the only fair point I can put across.
You provided a very good solution there.
Though I didn't have Jadeja in my team, so I shouldn't be talking too much about it. So we leave it at that. But a good suggestion we're going to put forward. It is, after all, a mirror of the real game. Who's our champion? Our My 11 Circle champion of the day is Vishwakarma Chandra from Chhattisgarh, and he is our My 11 Circle champion of the day. Well done for your selection. But that's as far as this particular game is concerned. Remember, this was only game one, and it gave us so many talking points. We'll certainly get many more talking points as we go forward to game number 2. The biggest of them is that it's going to be a change of venue. No longer India's favorite Australian capital, Canberra. Get onto a bus down the road into the capital of New South Wales, Sydney, all within the bubble that they are in, which is why Canberra and Sydney chosen. Because for those of you not aware of the geography of Australia, ACT, or the Australian Capital Territory, falls right in the middle of New South Wales. So that's why the proximity. Sydney, gentlemen, do you see a change of mindset, at least from Team Australia, saying this is familiar territory for us to make it 2-1?
I think they'll be happier in Sydney. It's just obviously that it looks like Aaron Finch will miss. They've not got David Warner, so that powerful combination, which has been pretty much their positive over the last year or so in T20 cricket. Darcy Short will have a new partner. Darcy didn't really get going tonight, so he may prefer the Sydney wicket. He might come onto the bat that little bit better. Probably Matthew Wade will go to the top of the order, and they have to find someone else in the middle. They're missing Stoinis as well. So I'll be interested to see which Team Australia pick. But it's that middle of the innings, which whoever they pick, they'll try and make sure that they talk. I'm sure they've spoken long and hard in team meetings about being more active in that middle. Activate every ball, run between the wickets hard. I just think they need to find a player or two in that middle in T20 cricket that can play against spin, can play against all the slow balls, because they look fine when the pacer. Look at Shami tonight. They hit Shami for over 40 bowling quickly. All the other bowlers, Chahal, Natarajan, who are skillful and just change the pace. And then obviously the spinners, that's where the Australian players struggle. So that is the area that the Aussies have to work on, playing against those kind of skillful bowlers rather than just cracking the quick bowlers everywhere.
Case for Cameron Green, maybe? Did he do enough, Zaheer, to push his way into this T20 side, especially given that he has contributes in both departments?
Well, they can. I think they certainly need more power. That's one thing which is evident from today's game as well. Maybe Andrew Tye is someone, considering the variations, that might be a place which is up for grabs of Sean Abbott. That's the only change I'm sensing. Andrix was terrific with the ball and the bat today, so they'll continue with that. Apart from that, I don't see any changes going forward in the second game.
Yeah, fair enough. I wonder if they'll reevaluate that second leg spinner. Yes, of course, he picked up a wicket in his second T20 international, did Mitchell Swepson, but and a big wicket of Virat Kohli. But Michael, does that keep you in the team yet again for Sydney?
Yeah, it goes a long way. I just think Ashton Agar's a good all-round player that Australia need back in the team. He bowled brilliantly in the third ODI, and he also bats. He's a skillful batter. He is a batter that could be used, as I've just mentioned, knocking it around, hitting the boundaries at the right time. He can access both sides of the wicket. I think his batting can be quite an important part of the T20 system in the Australian unit. His left-arm spin's obviously very good as well. They've just got whoever they pick, someone. It's a great opportunity for a couple of their players to really make that middle of the innings their own, because if they can find a couple, they're going to be in the team. It's as simple as that, because those that have been used so far, they've just not been able to kind of grab that position in the side and make it their own. So there's places up for grabs in the Australian unit.
Certainly. What about Team India? Had a winning combination here. Yuzvendra Chahal, we've already concluded, walks into that 11 for the second T20 international. You can see there we're not sure of the extent of the injury for Jadeja, the original injury, the hamstring injury. So that might just keep him out. So Chahal does walk into the side. Everyone else pretty much pick themselves for you?
Absolutely. I think the big discussion point will be Ravindra Jadeja, because you're not, if he's not playing, you're not only losing a bowler, but also power at the back end, so that is something which they'll have to think hard. What is the right way of going forward? If you bring in Chahal, that means you are that lower order is getting even longer. So that is something which they will be little apprehensive about, or will need more clarity around that. But on the whole, I feel the way things have gone in the last couple of games, Indian team has definitely got a sniff, and that is the worrying factor for Australia. So suddenly now, I would say that Australian team is more under pressure going forward, because this format, somehow they're not looking like a complete unit to win games of cricket consistently. On the other hand, when you look at the Indian team, they have won their 8th game in succession. So that is something which is going to boost their morale and confidence to another level. There is still a lot of fine-tuning to be done with regard to application in the middle. Once you have the control of the game, that 10 to 15 overs phase of the game, they need to figure things out, maybe have that situational awareness a bit more. But on the whole, I think these kind of things will come good going forward with the kind of momentum they have. Australia can have a tough time in the series for sure.
Yeah, and what a turnaround after those first 2 games. When you're talking about a possible long summer, what difference one particular team, one particular game does. Michael, also remind all viewers out there that that game that's happening, the 3-day game, which is the tune-up for the Test series, possibilities of Navdeep Saini and Mayank Agarwal being sent off to play that game would then rule them out as being possible contenders for that second T20I and send them off to play that.
Yeah, I think that's important for those players to get a bit of longer format practice. I think T20 is obviously very important with the World Cup only a short while away, but that Test series is what India really want to try and keep hold of. They won there 2 years ago. This time it's going to be a lot harder. The Aussies will have, obviously, Labuschagne, that wasn't there. Steve Smith back. Warner will miss probably 1, possibly 2, but he'll certainly play a couple of those tests. And obviously the skipper, the leader, the mainstay of the Indian team is only going to play that first game in Adelaide, the pink ball game. So it's going to be a real challenge for India to win that Test series again. They clearly can. They've come back well in the last couple of games. So they've got that spirit that you require. I think when you play in Australia, one of the most important skill levels and the most important traits any team need is fight. You've got to fight, and you've got to have that inner ticker and that inner belief. Clearly, in the last 2 games, they've gathered some kind of momentum and belief back into the team. That must continue in the last 2 T20s, but the Test series, it doesn't get any easier for India. They just have to start very, very well. They have to win that first game in Adelaide. They really do. If they don't win that first one with Virat, it could be a long Test series.
Yep, and Virat was the one who mentioned it at the end of this game. He used the word intensity. He's well aware of it, and I think India have upped that intensity factor in the last couple of games to make it effectively 2-all in the series so far across formats. In terms of formats, well, there's only one type of format we like when Joy Bhattacharya gets involved. He sets us a question, often very tough, sometimes getting a little easier. Today, maybe somewhere in the middle, because it sounded complicated, but it was something that had enough clues in it. Which international coach's autobiography shares its name with what is regarded as the most definitive biography of singer Bob Dylan and Ray Charles's daughter's story of the relationship with her father? So first and foremost, you've got to get down to those 2 particular books, Behind the Shades. And the coach in question is Duncan Fletcher, someone who both sides know enough about. Were you even close to that one, Michael?
No, didn't have a clue. To be honest, I don't have a clue with any of Joy's questions. They all go over my head.
Well, there you go. But certainly it's a winner that it's produced, just like India have been produced as winners in that first T20 international. And our winner is Anupam Himal Bhattarai. It's a brand new winner, and that's what we like to see. different type of question and a brand new winner. Obviously reads his autobiographies, or hopefully probably has read that one by Duncan Fletcher. Well done, Anupam. And let's keep newer and newer people coming into the hashtag Cricbuzz Live family with those questions. Well, there you have it. We stand at 2-all. 3 ODIs played, 1 T20 international played, a whole summer that lies ahead of us. But what a lot of talking points we had, and delighted that we could be in the company of Zaheer Khan and Michael Vaughan to get those talking points in. Thank you, gentlemen.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
We'll see all of you. I won't say bright and early in the morning because it's in the afternoon. A little earlier for Michael Vaughan, but afternoon for all of you in and around India. 1:10 is when we'll be on air for the second T20 International. We'll see you then from Sydney. Until then, it's been My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live.